Hi, my name is Alex Connell and I'm a roving chef and I work for a charity called Vegetarian for Life, which supports older vegetarians and vegans. Today I want to show you how to make bread. Now it really is quite straightforward. Now the ingredients for this will be on our website, so just type in Vegetarian for Life and you'll find it, and you'll also find lots of other information about nutrition. We've got some nice recipes, all sorts of things on there, definitely worth a look. But getting back to the recipe, we've got 500 grams of white strong flour. Now if you wanted to use wholemeal flour, obviously you could, but I would recommend adding a little bit more water to your mixture if you were going to do it completely wholemeal, but it will work. I've also got some water over here. I've got 300 millilitres of water. I've got a teaspoon of yeast. Now I am making this in a sort of a traditional way using yeast, but of course you could make soda bread, and instead of using yeast, that would have baking soda instead for the rise. I've also got some oil, and that's going to add flavour, but also a little bit of moisture to the bread, so it's not overly dry. And of course some salt. If you don't put salt in, it won't have much flavour in there, so it's something that's quite important to it. So first step, I've got 500 grams of flour, and I've made a little well in there, and into that I've got a teaspoon of salt. In we go with that, and I've got a teaspoon of yeast. In we go with that. Give it a little bit of a stir. Just put those to one side for a moment. Give a bit of a stir to mix it up. Okay. Now over here I've got a tablespoon or two of oil, and this goes straight into the water, and I've got 300 millilitres of water there. Give it a bit of a stir, and then start to mix it in. Okay, so it'll be quite wet at first, but then it's going to start to become firm, and you'll end up with a nice batter. Okay. Now you may notice on the side in front of me I've got a bread pan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to knead this dough, and then I'm going to put it straight into my bread pan for it to rise. I'm not going to let it rise separately and then knock it back as you would do in some traditional methods. What I'm going to do is to let it rise completely in that bread pan and then put it straight into the oven, which is a bit quicker than letting it prove a second time. But of course, if you have got time, then you could do that. Let it rise, knock it back into the pan, let it rise, and then bake it. But with this one, I'm going to put it straight in. Just a little bit quicker. So I'll just give this a bit of a stir, and then I'm going to turn it out and knead it. Now the kneading process is very important. What you're doing is you're stretching the dough, and it kind of puts the molecules together, so it ends up becoming quite elastic. So if I just turn this out now, you put a bit of extra flour on your work surface like so, and I'll just get rid of that for the moment. Now the technique is to stretch it, so whichever way you find is the way you find easy, then do it that way. But the trick is to stretch it. It's a nice way to relax, give your arms a little workout. Certainly good fun. So we're going to stretch it, and what will happen is that the texture of this dough will change, and it'll become elastic. It'll have a springy quality to that. So keep on going with that. Now if you do it fairly efficiently, it should only take a couple of minutes to do it, maybe 3 or 4 at tops. But if you're kind of just pushing it around like so, it's going to take much longer. So I'm just going to keep on stretching that, and you'll see in a second that it will start to become more of a dough that you may be familiar with. So when you've got to that point, and that's about right. Maybe I do it a little bit more, but that's about right. It's got a nice spring to that. That goes into our baking tray like so. Cover that, set that to rise, and in about 2 hours or so, you should end up with something that looks like that. Now this is going to go straight into the oven to bake, and that should take round about 25 minutes. Now the full recipe is on our website, so do have a look at that, and then eventually you end up with a homemade loaf. And when it comes out of the oven, you know when it's done because you turn it upside down and you get a hollow sound, and you know that it's done. And that's how to make a loaf of bread, nice and easy.